in the beginning, there's always a lot of brands that just see numbers or have automated bots saying, "Hey, we came across your account on TikTok and love what you are doing. We would like you to sell the coldest water. This bottle just makes 75 videos and we'll pay you a very, very small amount to do it. And it could be the greatest partnership ever." How do you decipher between the right partnerships to get involved in?
I very rarely, when you were just talking about that, I mean, people are like, yo, advertise this bottle and we'll give you $1 for every sale you make. I mean, I very rarely do that just because I don't see that scaling to something good. For me, brand deals, what's great about being in South Africa, it might be a negative as well, but what's great about being here is we have pretty much almost all the companies that's in the US, right? But they don't have the US influencers, which is very saturated in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a lot of options. So here, if you manage to go above 10, 15 million followers, it's pretty likely that if they just know about you, they're going to work with you. The money isn't as good as in the US, but I mean, it's good for if you're in South Africa. Because what a lot of people don't know is this is a very affordable country. I don't know if you guys know the guy by the name of Iman Gachi, but he actually has a house in Cape Town. He always talks about how inexpensive it is to actually live here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a great balance that I found, is being able to earn, in American dollar, but to stay in a country that's not as expensive. But yeah, I think, the way I decide, what's worth it or not is just, if I know it's a big brand, I'm going to work with them. If I know the money is going to be good, I'm going to work with them. Or if I see any potential ahead, I'm going to work with them. But I try to now put all my focus into YouTube, just because I see that as a solid income for now. And I know what I'm getting. I know if I'm going to make, because I kind of have this thing where I know what would go viral. I mean, I know that if I do a very visual trick and I've got a big enough background reaction, that video is probably going to do very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of relying more on that than the brand deals, but I do, of course, do a lot of that as well.
And how do the brands approach you? Do you get like a DM? Do you get, does your lawyer get a call? Do you have an agent or manager or something? I'm just curious about that, like what it's like at your level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I pretty much get an email. Sometimes I get a DM. It's always good to get an email instead, because that's obviously where I check most of the time. And sometimes it would just be a client that got my number or something from a client that I worked with. What I found, though, which I think is very important to mention, is you can have a lot of followers, right? And then you would have the assumption that because I have this many followers and I'm getting this many views, I'm going to get new clients. But what's actually interesting is how important relationships are. Because I've seen people who have far less followers than me do way more gigs than me, right? And more partnerships, more brand deals, simply because of the people they know. So I think that human factor is still there. And I think, sometimes I might do something and I'd be like, this is a complete waste of my time. I'm not going to make, like, for instance, people would always say, if you're doing a news interview, people would always say, go do it. It's such great exposure. And then I tell people, never in my life have I gotten someone watching me on the news calling me and say, hey, I saw you on the news. I'm sure that can happen to some people, but I've never had that. But what has happened is, because I've met the people from the news themselves, there are usually a producer or one of the anchors or someone who's like, wow, I didn't know you can do this and this and this. And then they're like, we have this event every 3 years. And that's, how the connections get you to more and more work. So that is something that I would say I kind of missed entirely, is just realizing how important it is to build that relationship, that network with people, instead of just looking at the numbers, because it does work, right? If you're doing well, if you're getting millions of views, you will have 5 or 10 clients email you saying they want to work with you. But if you can grab 5 clients and try to have a connection with them and go to their events, even if it's not paying that much, odds are you don't even have to post anything, and you'll literally be able to live off of those 5 clients.
Right.
So yeah.
To what extent are you like conscious and concerned about making sure that whatever you do for them doesn't feel compromised or promotional because of whatever you're going to put together content wise? You needed to maintain the reason it brought you to their attention to begin with. So somebody wants
Yes.
you to do something for their brand, or is it just the product placement? Do you just put a little thing like click this, or thank you so much? I think Mr. Beast has talked about just thanking the sponsor of this video for making this and making this video possible, but not necessarily making it a commercial for the product. Like, where do you draw those
Yes.
lines?
I think I'm very fortunate with Magic, because I will admit that that's not, I shouldn't take any credit for that because it's not my idea, But I was very fortunate that if someone sends me, let's say, a Prime bottle, suddenly, I already think of 10 tricks I can do with the Prime bottle, right? So I can do an actual magic trick with it, and already it seems more organic than other influencers who are literally standing there, hey guys, this, you know what I mean? But
Interesting.
yeah, I think
So it's easy for you to incorporate any kind of sponsor or brand deal into and make sure it feels like also organic content because you're just integrating it, and it's easier. The integration is easier.
Usually, and look, some people have terrible products, right? Some people have stuff that not necessarily the product is terrible, but you're like, how am I going to work with this, right? What am I going to do? I remember I did something for a coffee company once, and their whole thing was trying to convince their client, like, this is a repurposable tin. And I mean, they literally like just put like a few beads around and they're like, see this cool thing we made. And they're like, do a magic trick to show them that it's repurposable. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to do that, right? So sometimes it's hard. I think a very important thing, and I think this will apply to everyone, is just making sure your client understands what your audience likes. Like when you said what Mr. Beast says, I mean, that's very true. The quicker you can get this ad over with, the more likely that the video remains organic, it's going to get good watch time, and it's going to reach more people. If you make a video sitting there talking for a minute about the product, it's probably going to get only a few views, and they're not even reaching that many people. So the problem with that is that a lot of clients, of course, what I always find interesting is a client would have, let's say, 10,000 followers, right? And you would have millions, or any influencer, let's say, would have millions or so. And then the client is kind of taking over.
They want to dictate.
This is what we want. We want this video to be posted. And then it's like, okay, that's why they probably have that few followers. So you kind of have to understand that this is why this person is so good at what they do. You have to have their intake on that. I always try to just mention to a client, like, it's just very important that we understand that the way the whole thing works is if we want to reach a lot of people, people have to watch this video pretty much beginning to end. And I say to them, if we're going to talk about a product and stuff, it's probably not going to do well. So, but I have to say, like, a lot of clients has kind of adapted to the times. So they would, from the start, they would tell you, listen, we want it to fit organically. We don't even want you to mention us or anything like that. But a lot of the times you do unfortunately get that. And I think it's just important to tell a client, like, look, this isn't going to work.
So it's a conversation that has to be had up front. You're approaching me for a reason.